Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emil and today we're gonna learn how to crochet the very basic granny crochet in any size. So let's get started. Well, what I recommend always for the granny squares is to use the same size of crochet hook which is recommended for the yarn, and in this case is the 4mm crochet hook. And then what you're gonna do is twist the yarn so we can get this small loop with the tail under the yarn coming from the bow, and we're gonna introduce the crochet hook into this small loop, grab the yarn and pull it through the loop. Then pull the tail, and this is how we get the slip knot. And now what you're gonna do is chain 5, which is yarn over, pull through the chain, so we get 1, yarn over, pull through the chain, 2, 3, 4 and 5 chains. And then what you're gonna do is 1 slip stitch into the very first chain. So introduce into the very first chain, grab the yarn and pull it through to the 2 stitches we have on the loop. This is how we get this small loop around which we're gonna do the very first row. And what we're gonna do in the very first row is 4 shell stitches of 3 double crochets with 2 chains separation between each one of them. So we're gonna start with the very first double crochet, which will be 3 chains, 1, 2 and 3. This is the measure of the double crochets, and we're gonna count it as 1 double crochet as the first one. Then for the second one we're gonna take yarn over, introduce the crochet hook into the loop, grab the yarn, pull through the loop, and then we're gonna close 2 by 2. Grab the yarn, pull through 2, grab the yarn, pull through 2. So we have 2 double crochets for the very first shell stitch. And we need another one, so we're gonna take yarn over into the same space, grab the yarn, close 2 by 2. So we have already the first shell stitch of the 3 double crochets. And for the next one what you're gonna do is chain 2, 1, 2, and into the same space we're gonna do the second shell stitch. So we're gonna do 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets into the same space, and 3 double crochets into the same space for the second shell stitch. For the third one we're gonna chain 2 again, 1, 2, and into the same space we're gonna do another 3 double crochets, 1, 2 and 3 double crochets for the third shell stitch. And let's continue with the last one, with the shell number 4. So we're gonna chain 2, and then we're gonna do 1, 2 and 3 double crochets into the same space. And to over the very first row what we're gonna do is chain 1, and into the third chain, 1, 2, 3, we're gonna do 1 single crochet. So introduce into the third chain, grab the yarn, pull through the chain, and then we're gonna close these 2 stitches together. So we're gonna pass the yarn, pull through stitches. And then what you're gonna do in the row number 2 is first we're gonna go back to the very first space, this one, and here we're gonna do 1 increase of 1 shell. So we're gonna do first 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and into the same space we're gonna do 2 more double crochets. So we're gonna do 1 double crochet and 2 double crochets, and this is our first increase of the very first space. Actually what we're gonna do into each space, which will be each corner of the granny square, is 1 increase, and the increase is 2 shells in the same space. For the moment we have only one, but when we over the row we're gonna do another one. So let's continue with the second corner, with the second space. And what you're gonna do is chain 1, and then we're gonna do 1 shell stitch into this space, 1, 2, and 3 double crochet into the same space. Then we're gonna chain 2, 1, 2, and into the same space we're gonna do another shell stitch of 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3 double crochets into the same space. And this is our first increase of 2 shells with 2 chains between them. Then for the third corner, or for the third space, we're gonna do chain 1, and we're gonna do again the same increase of 2 shells. So we're gonna do 1 shell of 1, 2, and 3 double crochets. Then we're gonna chain 2, 1, 2, and into the same space we're gonna do another shell of 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. You have to know that we chain 2 only in the corners where we do the increases. So it means that in the next row where we have the 2 chains, we're gonna do again 1 increase, and where we have only 1 chain, we're gonna do only 1 shell. So let's continue with the fourth corner. Chain 1, 1 shell of 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. For the next one, chain 2, and another shell into the same space, 1, 2, and 3 double crochet into the same space. So this is how we do the fourth corner of the granny square. And the very first corner, if you remember, we did only 1 shell, and I told you that it's gonna be 1 increase when we over the row. So we're gonna do 1 chain, and we're gonna over with 1 shell into the very first space, 1, 2, and 3 double crochet into the same space. And this is how we get 2 shells into the very first corner. And to over the row, we're gonna do again chain 1, and into the third chain, 1, 2, 3, into the third chain we're gonna do 1 single crochet. So introduce, wrap the yarn, and close 2. This is our second row. Well, to continue with the next row, we're gonna do absolutely the same. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we go back to the very first space, and we're gonna do 2 more double crochets, 1 and 2. And this is how we start all the rows of the granny square. It doesn't matter how many rows you want to do. For the granny square, you will always start with 1 shell into the very first space. Then what you have to do is go to the next corner where we're gonna do another increase, but we have 1 space between the corners, and we have to complete it with another shell. So what you're gonna do is chain 1, and into this space we're gonna do 1 shell of 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3 double crochets into the same space. And if you see, we have another chain here between the very first increase and the next shell. And to continue with the corner, we have to do another chain, and we're gonna continue with the increase of 2 shells of 3 double crochets. So we're gonna do 1 shell of 3 double crochets, chain 2, and another shell of 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3 double crochets. And this is the very first side of the third row, and if you see that between each corner the spaces are increasing with another one. So in the second one we had only 1 space between the corners. In the third one we have 2 spaces between the corners, and in the next one we will have 3. So in each row they grow with 1 space, and in each row we grow with another shell stitch. So let's continue with the next side. So we're gonna do chain 1 into the next space, we're gonna do 1 shell stitch of 3 double crochets, 1, 2 and 3, chain 1, and we go to the next corner where we do another increase of 2 shell stitches of 3 double crochets, always with 2 chains between them. 1, 2 and 3. Well, this is how we work the third row. So we're gonna continue again on the third side with another shell stitch into the space in the middle. Then we're gonna continue with the increase, and then we're gonna over the last side with 1 shell stitch into the middle and 1 shell stitch into the last space of the very first corner. So let's continue with it. Well, here I'm about to over the fourth side and the very first increase, very first corner of the granny square, and this is the row number 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's over with it. 3 double crochets, chain 1, and into the third chain, 1, 2, 3, we're gonna do 1 single crochet. Well, to continue with the next row we have to do absolutely the same. Chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and into the very first space we're gonna do 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. And if you remember, I told you that we're gonna grow with 1 chain and with 1 shell stitch in each row. So we have, instead of 2 spaces, we have, instead of 1 space, we have 2 spaces, 1, 2. So we're gonna complete them, each one of them, with 1 shell. So we're gonna do chain 1, 1 shell stitch into the very first space, 2, 3 double crochets of the very first shell. Then we're gonna chain 1 and the next space with another shell stitch, chain 1, and we go for the corner and for the increase of the corner where we do 2 shells of 3 double crochets with 2 chains between them. 1, 2 and 3 double crochets. And if you see, again we grow with 1 space and we will grow with another shell stitch in the next row. So you can do it big as you want, always as you keep the same order of the stitches. And what I'm going to do is over the row number 4 and show you how we close the last row. It doesn't matter which row it is. Well, no matter how many rows you have of the granny square, how you want to, always the same. Chain 1, we're gonna over with the very last shell stitch into the very first corner, and here instead of chain 1 and 1 single crochet, what we're gonna do is chain 2, 1, 2, and then what we're gonna do is cut the yarn about 15 centimeters is absolutely enough. Then we're gonna pull the yarn, and with the sewing needle we're gonna pass it through the very first chain of the last row. So we're gonna pass it through the very first chain, then we go back to the very last chain here, and this is how it looks like. Then we're gonna go to the back side of the granny square and we're gonna hide the yarn just like that. And this is how we crochet the basic granny square, and I hope you really like it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to do it in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and follow me in my Instagram. See you soon!